left to right. Russell Westbrook.
You love the Philadelphia Eagles. Let me get a hell yeah!
Oh, this is wild.
The Philadelphia 76ers defeated the Boston Celtics 107-93. Let's talk about it. We got Brian Jacobs. Follow him on Twitter at Brian Mike Jacobs. What's up, Brian?
What's going on, buddy? How you doing today? You feeling good? You happy? I see a smile on your face. No, it was a fun game. It was not fun in the beginning. I was a little wary about the slow start, as most people were, but the end result is all that matters, especially in games against the Boston Celtics.
All right, guys, welcome to Party on Broad. Next up, we also have Matt Shore. Make sure you follow him on Twitter at Pure Booyah. What's up, Matt?
Yo, hey, being the Celtics game one, can't get much better than that. I mean, yeah, there's some things we can work on, and everyone's still gelling, but the defensive prowess of this team, I mean, Matisse Thybulle, I swear, he sees 1 second into the future. It's fun.
It's like Back to the Future's got some of that, like, oh, man. But, all right, last up, we have Jack Connell. Follow him on Twitter at Jack Connell TPL. What up, Jack?
Nothing much. Great game. It's a nice change of pace in the city of Philadelphia tonight from all the bad that's been going on. Nice win, especially against the Celtics, setting the tone. Ready to talk about it.
First takeaway. We're going to talk our takeaways. We're going to grade the players, grade Brett Brown. First up, let's talk about Ben Simmons. 24 points, 9 assists, 8 boards, 15 plus positive 15 on the court tonight. Brian, what was your takeaway of Ben Simmons tonight?
Seems to me like he got better at finishing around the rim. I mean, it's one game, but I mean, there was that one scoop shot that was just absolutely ridiculous that went in.
Sky hook.
I mean, you see him finish those. I mean, so there is skill that goes into that. But overall, I mean, there's always room for improvement. That's why I'll never give him an A+. But I don't want to hear anybody say he didn't shoot a three. There was no moment in that game where it was natural for him to shoot a three. It was all natural for him. It was a good flow game for him. There was no forced shots. Everything was within reason. The only shot that was forced was that fadeaway, but I'm okay with that. I mean, great defense as always by him. It was just a great game by him.
The number one play that comes to my mind, the skyhook layup was great, but there was a play in that second quarter when he dribbled it into the paint, and 9.5 times out of 10 last season, he would jump in the air, throw the ball away, turn away from the basket, and look to pass every single time. And he got a basket, man. That was kind of a aha Jesus moment for me. Matt, what was your takeaway of Ben Simmons today?
Well, I just want to comment on that one scoop shot. You know, it reminds me of the old NBA Jam game where they do the finger roll and it goes 20 feet in the air and drops through. But he had a great feel for the game. He let the game come to him, which is what you want to see. He didn't force anything. Maybe that fadeaway was forced, but it was good to see him take a jump shot, and he didn't have to take a three. It wasn't necessary. He found the open player. He got through the lane. He went through contact. He did everything I wanted to see him do, and I'm not one of those guys that is 3-pointer bust. I just want him to score and score efficiently. 11 of 16 from the field. I mean, come on. Like, right. What more can you ask for? Like, right. Do you want a guy that scores 40 points a night and does it only on twos? Or do you want a guy that scores like 21 a night and, does it with some threes here and there? The argument doesn't make sense to me as long as he's letting the game come to him. If he's standing wide open and refuses to shoot, that's a different story. That didn't happen tonight. We'll see what happens in the future. I give him an A.
Absolutely. 16 field goal attempts from Ben Simmons, man. If someone comes up and says, oh, he didn't shoot a three, they deserve a beatdown. 16 field goal attempts. Jack, what was your take on Ben Simmons tonight?
He had a great game. He 24-7-7. The thing I've been saying before, he looks a lot faster in all aspects of his game. I feel like he's, like Brian said, he's attacking the rim a lot more aggressively and a lot better this year. He just has that touch to him this year. It just looks like he's taking that next step. He did take a couple fadeaways that did seem a little bit natural. They didn't make it, but he shot them. I'll take that. Like they said, the threes, he didn't need to take any threes. The opportunity really wasn't there. He didn't need to. And I think he did great. I think it's a very good start to the season for Ben. Hopefully some improvement. Most points out of anybody on the team tonight. Didn't really expect that. I thought it would be good to Embiid, but great night for him.
The number 2 standout of the game for me personally, you guys feel free to say I'm wrong, but it was Josh Richardson. 4 of 12 from the field tonight, 17 points, 6 rebounds. He was a plus 22 on the court. If this is a bad offensive night from Josh Richardson, dude, we are going to have a fun season. Jack, what was your take on Josh Richardson, man?
From the very first minute on, I loved him. That block on Gordon Hayward 2 minutes into the game, he was just an absolute menace on the offensive and defensive side of the ball. He really just brought that spark. He was energized the entire game. He looks like he absolutely loves it in Philadelphia. He was a good backup point guard when needed there. Put up some decent shots, and I'm really excited to see where he goes from here.
That block, that big boy block on Gordon Hayward, man, that really set the tone for the game in that first quarter. Go ahead, Matt. Any thoughts on Josh?
Yeah, two stats that you didn't really highlight that I would love to highlight. He had the highest plus minus on the team with plus 22, and he was 9 of 9 from the free throw line. All right, we got a guy that is money at the free throw line. Ben was 2 of 5. That's something I forgot to mention. I think that is going to get better as time. When he really worked on it, he was shooting in the high 60s, low 70s. But to have Josh Richardson, a backup point guard who can drive in and makes his free throws, that's going to be a big difference. And look at those defensive 2 blocks and the steal. I mean, I love it. Everybody's talking about, we lost Jimmy Butler. This is what Jimmy Butler does. This stat line is what Jimmy Butler does, and he's younger and he has more energy, and the guys like him. It's a win all around for me. I give him an A-.
Go ahead, Brian.
Mainly, the thing that I was thinking of the entire game, that like when he was like in the beginning of the game, he got that block and he reacted with like the screen. He's replacing that TJ like fire and celebration after like the antics, you know what I mean? Like everybody wants to say Jimmy and Redick when they compare the two. He's actually bringing that DJ like energy with obviously the defense of, that could be even better than Jimmy Butler's, especially man defense. But the tenacity that he plays with, and he's going to shoot better than he did tonight. He was 4 for 12, he said, but 9 for 9 from the free throw line. Shows you how good of a touch he has. He's not going to be JJ Redick from 3, but that dude's going to shoot 38%. So when you add that with the TJ mentality, with his grit, hustle, along with his defensive ability, I give him his performance tonight a B. Because of the shooting, that every other aspect of this game is why it's a B. You know what I mean? So
yep.
It was great.
I just wanted to point out one other replacement that was pretty good tonight. Shake Milton, Frosty Freeze-Out mascot off the bench.
They
that was great.
3. What's the third prize? It goes
I think it upgrades
fries, and then what's the third one?
Baconator? I don't know.
No, it's a Frosty. It's a Frosty, then it's a small Frosty and a small fry, and then it's a medium Frosty and a medium fry.
Matt knows, man. He's ready.
Games.
Nice. What was your thoughts? Let's get into Matisse Thybulle. What was your thoughts on Matisse? I thought he got burned a little bit fighting the screen game with Kemba Walker. But one of the best plays of this game from Matisse was when in that third quarter that he blocked Kemba. He kind of blocked him twice almost. What was your take on Matisse? Go ahead, Brian.
I'm so happy that he made that 3 at the end of the game because there's it's a weird thing. I actually kind of bask in. I want him to score only 3 points. I want to see stat lines 3 points, 4 steals, 3 blocks, and 5 rebounds. That's I want him to be his own person. You know what I don't need him to go out there trying to score. If he can hit 3 shots a game, maybe score 8 points a game, I mean, that's all you need from him. And towards the end of the game, I tweeted something along the lines of like, our rookie player, wingman, that's playing in his first game is guarding their best players. I mean, he was guarding Hayward in times, he was guarding Tatum in times, he was guarding Kemba. I mean, that was rough for him, but he held his own. And I was thinking to myself, I was like, when's the last time the Sixers have had a rookie where they just put them out there and defended the other player? And the first guy I thought of was Iguodala, because he could. And I made that comparison when after we drafted him, like the college stats is what I made. They're not the same player, but with regards to man defense, like everybody wants to talk about zone. This kid can play defense all cut. He could play defense with his hands tied behind his back. He can get in the way. He's going to be able to adjust to any system. So him, I mean, obviously the offensive game will come, and because of his lack of production on offense, which we don't need, I give him a B+. I mean, I'll give him a B. I can't grade him better than Josh Richardson because he did play better than Josh, but I'll give him the defense was so good and so fun to watch. He played 21 minutes, right?
Yep.
I mean, that's his first game.
Instant defensive impact. Mark Zumoff called Kyle Korver that instant Korver. This guy is instant Thybulle. Go ahead, Matt. What was your take on Matisse?
Well, Matisse playing the sixth most minutes on the team caught me off guard. I did not expect for him to get thrust into that big of a role that quickly. It shows how much trust his teammates have in him, how much trust the coaching staff has in him already. The way he sees the game on the defensive side of the floor. Like Brian said, that's a great. I didn't think of Iggy, but he is the best defender this quickly in their career since Iggy that's been on the Sixers. He may be the best pure defender we've had since Iggy, quite frankly. As good as some of the defenders we have, there were things that he was doing that we just haven't seen. The way he gets into the passing lanes, the way he reads where the ball's going. The one thing that I would like to see him improve on is keeping his the player he's defending in front of him. Almost all the fouls he got were because he let the player get in front of him and he tried to, kind of get back in front of the player and block him from behind. So he's just got to get a little bit better at that lateral movement on the man-to-man defense. But as a whole, as part of the unit, I mean, he was everywhere. He was wreaking havoc. It was great.
I kind of feel like not to cut in, but I kind of feel like that's like, you're absolutely right. He needs to stop doing that as much, but it's almost like he's doing that as like that's like his strategy. He's like, I'm going to let him get by me, and he's got me. I'm going to sneak up and try to block it, but it's the NBA, and he's going to foul him.
That was such a non-rookie play when he blocked Kemba. That was a non-rookie play of Matisse going not again and said no. That was a huge defensive play. That also kind of set the tone for that third quarter. Go ahead, Jack. Any thoughts on Matisse?
A couple things. Well, first thing I wanted to talk about is I think it was ESPN or somebody wrote an article, maybe think of you. They stole your idea. They said why Matisse Thybulle is exactly like Tayshaun Prince.
Oh, really? Wait. We have to bring up Matisse Thybulle. The entire game, he was being called Matisse Thybulle this game. Did you see that?
By who?
I turned it off after that.
ESPN was calling Matisse Thybulle the whole
time. I was watching on Comcast. I would never watch ESPN.
I have a minute lag on Comcast, and you're on Blue Root, right, Chris?
I was on Blue Root, yeah.
Yeah, you. I mean, if I'm on my phone, you spoil it for me because you were like Matisse, like, and I'm like, it's like a stoppage. I'm like, oh my god, what did you just do? So I had to put my phone on the charger, especially because we were doing this. And yeah, man, like it was bad on ESPN. I couldn't watch it anymore.
Go ahead, Jack. Sorry to interrupt you.
So the one thing, Matisse, it wasn't really his fault. I wouldn't even call it. He kind of had a little bit of falling back to earth, sort of. It's not. It's just it was his first professional NBA game. I wouldn't say it's a fault for him, but for fans, because fans had such high hopes going into him. I don't even know if they expected him to play as many minutes as he did tonight, which is the level he was playing at. His offense is strong, so he had a couple missed layups, transition. He's not really the man you want to go to on a fast break, it seems like so far. But his defense, it was good, like we were kind of saying. He feels like he's trying to bait too many people into that behind the back block, and he's ending up fouling guys because it's the NBA, and that just doesn't work right now. I think he's going to get great. He's fine. He had a couple of learning steps along the way. He did great. Great corner three. Great blocks, great steals. I'm excited to see more of him this year. I love that he's going to be one of the 7th, 8th man off the bench this year.
It's going to be really good. Let's briefly get into Horford and Embiid before we talk about some kind of negatives that happened tonight. Embiid finished with 15 points, 13 boards. He did have 3 blocks. He also had 5 personal fouls. Jack, what was your overall take on Joel Embiid tonight?
I think he did good. I mean, I think we're starting to see that the team doesn't have to rely on him as much as they used to. I mean, look at that stretch they had in the end there. He wasn't even in. It was Kyle O'Quinn. I think he's starting to see maybe he could breathe a little bit. He'll get more of that load management possibly throughout the year. But he did good today. Had some explosive plays. A lot of the lack of points was Boston was heavily double teaming him early on. As soon as he got in the post, they were swarming him. And it was obviously that's where he flusters, is when he gets double teamed down low, he can't find an outlet. But he had a couple good passes, and he did pretty good. He busted up a little bit, but I'm excited to see what he does against his buddy Drummond.
The box score says 0 turnovers, although
that was the first thing I was going to say.
I think I saw 1 turnover in that first quarter in that first double team. Matt, go ahead. What's your take on him?
I guess they didn't give it to him, but that was what my first comment was going to be, was he was in double teams all night and he didn't turn the ball over. I know that was something they worked with him a lot on in the offseason. I'm happy to see that. I'm unhappy to see him struggling at the free throw line, however. Yeah. I don't know if that's because his lip was ripped in half or whatever, but and he was in pain. But I'd like to see him clean that up. That's been a really reliable part of his game. A huge part of his game is getting to the free throw line. He was keeping up with James Harden last year, so if he's getting there, I want him to be making it. But overall, I thought he was exactly what we needed him to be. And yeah, he got into foul trouble just like Horford did, but then Kyle O'Quinn comes in and shoots a 3. So, everything kind of worked tonight.
Yeah, how about Kyle O'Quinn before I get to you, Brian? Like, Kyle O'Quinn, as much as painful as it is to say it, he was kind of a momentum shift there when he came into the game.
Painful.
He hit a 3. I wanted Norvell Pell to be in that game, but he was great. Kyle O'Quinn did his job. Brian, what was your take on Joel Embiid?
So I think, I don't know if this is public or not, but I think that he do his interview the other day hunched over because he had a big fat lip from the Wizards game. I don't know if you heard that. I'm like,
yeah. I saw the interview. He was like this the entire time.
It's because his lip was pretty rough. So like then he comes in and plays this game and just get whacked in the lip. So I can
Takes
imagine
an elbow to the face.
And that John Ritchie calcium deposit on his nose.
I thought it was whipped. I thought the injury was worse than it was when it happened. I was like, oh god, his eye again. I thought he got whacked in the eye, but no, he played a good game in the second half, in the third quarter, I should say. The beginning of the game, he was forcing a little bit. You could see he was frustrated because Kanter, as much as he's not like an all-around great player, he's a solid big man who is a big guy and he can get in his way. And it's always those Euro bigs that pose a problem for Embiid, like Nurkic. Like obviously, like everybody has a problem playing against Joker, but like remember Gortat was always like a pain in the ass against Embiid. Like there's those guys that just make him work for his points, and Horford did. So and he's not Euro, but he did. But I'd give him a B-. He did struggle from the foul line. He was inefficient from the field, but his impact on defense is always there, even when he's not putting up stats. And Kyle O'Quinn came in. He's going to do that. You're going to see him on nights where Embiid isn't playing. And this is the type of game where all the people that were like, why would you overpay Horford like that? He's look at him. Look what happens when Embiid's out. Look what happens. This is what you got. He's your insurance.
One last positive before we get in. I have to give props to Furkan Korkmaz. He struggled in that first half, but I thought he was an integral part in that second half. Call him Ersan Korkmaz, call him whatever you want, but he drew a charge, he hit a 3. I thought it was a decent second half. But let's talk about some kind of major other takeaways that are kind of on the negative side. We talked about the Sixers' lack of shooting. They finished the game 7 of 21 from three-point range. At one point in the first half, 3 of 21 outside the paint in that first half. What's your take on the shooting, Brian? Go ahead, man.
So, overall shooting, in the beginning of the game by everybody, right?
Yeah.
I think a lot of it had to do, even though that it's a better team all around, they're amped up for the first game of the year. It's not an excuse, but it's the truth that all those guys were amped up. They wanna make the fans happy, and it took until the third quarter for them to really go in the halftime break and settle in and play like we could see them play. And they weren't even really hitting everything, even in the third. Just the defense clamped down. But you're going to see a lot of wins like that. You're going to see a lot of wins where they just grind it out the way that great teams do. But about the shoot, I'm not really concerned about the shooting overall. Jay Rich is going to have better games. Tobias is going to get hot. You're going to have guys that step up, like maybe a Mike Scott, like 4 3-pointer game, and Embiid's going to hit his threes. And I'm not really worried about it. And also, they're going to add somebody at buyout or trade deadline. Somebody, I don't know who, but they will, definitely.
I think the biggest key in that third, fourth quarter was the ball movement came back to what we saw in the preseason. Matt, what was your take on the Sixers' difficulty with shooting tonight?
So the shooting was actually worse than you said. They were actually 7 of 29 from 3 for 24%. That's not going to happen every night. There's going to be some positive regression. They will probably settle around 35% or 33% as a team, something like that. So, I liked it there again. The shots up. When they started hitting, we started pulling away. This team is a very much early 2000s team in the sense that we're going to have trouble scoring some nights, but our defense is so suffocating that we're going to be able to stay in any game because, number one, we play that defense, and number two, we're really talented at getting to the line. Every guy in that starting lineup knows how to get to the line. So those are the two things. If you go back to that old Pistons team that beat all those great teams that nobody thought they could even touch, was because they were holding teams to 75 points a game or 80 points a game. You had Ben Wallace who would score 2 points and 27 rebounds a game. So you just had these players. Tayshaun Prince was on that team. Chauncey Billups. You had these guys who may not have had the best offensive capabilities, and we're going to see games like this, but we have the defense. So, I mean, I'm not really concerned about the shooting. And when you have your point guard going 11 of 16, I don't care if they're 20-footers or 1-footers, you're going to win a lot of games.
Me and Austin had a party on Broad a few days ago about the preseason and main takeaways, and should we be concerned about the lack of shooting? I look at this box score right here, and you talk about, extra possessions on offense. The Sixers, and you talk about rebounds too. The Sixers had 21 more rebounds than the Boston Celtics. Wow. And they also had, points off turnovers. They had 20 points off turnovers today. Jack, any reason to be concerned about the Sixers' lack of shooting? Go ahead, man.
I mean, there's a little bit. I mean, again, it's the first game. There's a lot to go ahead. I think these guys will hopefully find their strides, but I mean, it's definitely something that you can't just brush off. I mean, if it keeps going throughout the rest of the couple games, you gotta take a look at it. Their defense. Boston's a good team. Your defense played great, so I really don't think it's an incredible worry at this moment. You're gonna get into practice. You're gonna get film. You're gonna get more confident. You're gonna get more chemistry. A lot of things are gonna change for the next 81 games. I think, like Brian said, they're probably gonna have a shooter. Somebody to buy on market. It would be crazy to think that they don't. I don't think it's too much to think about going to the next game against Detroit.
In the words of Chip Kelly, big people beat up little people. And I think a big part of this game was the Sixers' ability to get the Boston Celtics in foul trouble early on. I mean, it was like within the first 6 minutes of every single quarter, besides the first quarter, ironically, the Sixers were able to live at the free throw line, especially Joel Embiid. The other takeaway I had in this game was this may be more of a long-term concern than maybe the shooting concern that I personally have. The Sixers don't have that guy to get separation from the defender. There was a lot of times in this game where you saw Jay Rich, Tobias. They're not quick enough to beat the defender off the dribble. Is that something we should be concerned about? Is that something we should be worried about in the playoffs? Go ahead, Brian.
I'm not concerned about it right now because even though they weren't able to create separation, they were actually crafty enough to take advantage of the suffocating defense and cause fouls. Because you can see Jay Rich's ability to kind of he does that thing that who is it? I think Harden kind of does it where he gets in front of him and he kind of slows up and gets his back up against the player. And even Hayward was doing it tonight a little bit. he's going to keep people close to him, but he's going to explode last second and either get a foul or finish or go for a good shot. Tobias, I'm concerned about with regards to trying to do that as much because he'll end up taking a forced shot most of the time. I mean, he can make it, but he's really going to be a high tempo 3-point specialist on this team with the ability to get the ball in his hands and slash here and there. But separation definitely isn't a good facet of this team right now. Ben can obviously separate, even though everybody sags off him because he's so damn athletic. But I think you definitely have a case. Now, what are you going to go after? Are you going to go after separation and a shooter? Are you going to go after a separation shooter? Like that would be tough. But I mean, you're looking at guys like Deion Waiters at that point who are going to be terrible on defense. You know what I mean? But it's something.
That was the biggest thing, like lack of shooting and a guy that can get buckets in that last 5 minutes. Go ahead, Matt. Am I worrying too much, or is it just the first game? Go ahead, man.
I think it's just the first game. I think these guys are still learning to play with each other. I think as they get more comfortable, they'll be more comfortable kind of driving into the lane, and if they get stuck, they'll know where the teammates are going to be. So that comfort is going to come with playing the games together. Embiid and Simmons have had so many different starting lineups they've played with, and then Toby gets added in, and Jimmy. So if this core can stay together and get a lot of games under their belt, we're going to start seeing them get more comfortable and get that separation. Ben's driving through the lane. He's sagging guys off of the perimeter players. They're getting open shots. I don't necessarily think that we need Toby and Jay Rich and those guys to be able to beat anybody off the dribble, because we have a point guard that can get anybody the ball wherever they need it. So when you have that sort of luxury, I don't think it's something that we have to be overly worried about.
All right, go ahead, Jack.
The one thing was there a lack of pick and roll offense by the Sixers tonight? Is it just because they don't have that set shooter like we're talking about? I just felt like that was something you see a lot more out of this team, and it really wasn't shown that much tonight.
Right.
I think pick and roll was a key part of their offense. Like, obviously, that was because they had JJ Redick, and that's a completely different scenario. But I feel like they could have used something a little bit of Tobias. Jay Rich worked out a little bit. Back to what you were saying, I mean, I think they'll work into it eventually, like you said. I really don't think there will be too much cause to it. I think Jay Rich will eventually evolve into that type of guy. Tobias, I'm hoping, but he just doesn't seem like he's that kind of player. But I really don't think there's too much issue with it. You're so great at so many other things. I mean, that's something you can work on as the season progresses.
And the last takeaway I have before we wrap this up is James Ennis. James Ennis really struggled tonight. I thought he had a really great preseason. James Ennis had 3 points in 17 minutes, 5 personal fouls. He was a negative 12. How much leash do you give James Ennis, and how soon do you put in Zaire Smith? Go ahead, Jack.
It's again first game jitters. I think he's gonna be fine. He has a lot of game experience with the team that he's shown he's competent. He's good. The Raptors playoff, he looked good. Preseason looked good. I don't think they're ready to strip everything off of one game. And Zaire really hasn't shown much to prove that he's any better in preseason. I think James Ennis played a lot better in the preseason than Zaire did. And I think Zaire just needs that rookie. This is pretty much his rookie season. This is his first full year. I think James will be fine. It's just one game. Like, I think you can't really judge too much off of one game for anybody, really.
Bam, nailed it. Go ahead, Matt.
Zaire Smith is clearly not doing what they want him to do thus far. He's not even an active player, which is a bummer to see. But let's keep in mind, he's 20. He doesn't turn 21 until after this season. All right, that's how young this guy is.
Yep.
And you'll be hard pressed to find guys in the NBA that are actual usable players before 21 or before 23. So he's got some time to learn. He's playing with all these incredible players in practice. He's getting better. I think Ennis is going to be just fine. They're going to continue using him. He showed his chops in the playoffs. He came back here on a little bit of a discount. I think the team and the coaching staff really likes him, and I think he'll be just fine. It's just one game.
Just one game. Go ahead, Brian. Finish this off.
So basically, he had a rough game. I mean, but he was such a stable piece in the playoffs this past year where he's reliable. He's going to have bad games. So is Embiid, so is Simmons, so is Tobias. They're all going to have bad games. But his game is just being a scrapper. You don't want the ball in his hands in transition. I mean, he was just a lost soul when he had that ball in his hands. And that was kind of, I don't remember who it was that passed it to him. It could have been Matisse. I'm not sure, but somebody passed it to him, and he had no business handling that ball at that point. He's going to be fine. And if anybody were to take his spot in the rotation, let's say maybe he gets a couple games off just to clear his head because he's having a bad stretch. I mean, I could see instead of Thybulle coming in at shooting guard, I could see him sliding a small forward and having Shake coming at shooting guard. Furkan obviously is getting a lot of minutes, but he seems like he's part of the rotation. So, I mean, he wouldn't be replacing him. So, I mean, we'll see, man.
All right.
See. I think he's going to be fine.
All right. The Philadelphia 76ers 1-0 on the season. They defeated the Boston Celtics 107-93. Last things last. You guys ready?
Chris Collinsworth slide.
All right. He is Brian Mike Jacobs. Follow him on Twitter at Brian Mike Jacobs. Follow Matt on Twitter at Pure Booyah. That is Jack Connell at Jack Connell TPL. I'm Chris. Thanks for watching, guys. Stay awesome.
Later, guys. Those were some good moves, Matt.
I'm glad my wife didn't see that.
Swing and a miss. Struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.
And the Sixers win it! Wow! Oh, man. Embiid just posterized Russell Westbrook.
You love the Philadelphia Eagles. Let me get it.